South Korea, China, Vietnam, different economies at different stages of development, but all with a common denominator. Over the past few decades, globalization has brought about a true industrial and economic revolution in many Asian countries. However, we don't have to look that far. In the heart of Europe, we can find two countries that, over the last 20 years, have also experienced enormous industrial growth. One of them is Poland, and the other is the focus of our discussion today, Turkey, situated halfway between Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. For almost 20 years, Turkey has been one of the shining stars of the global economic landscape. Between early 2001 and 2018, the Turkish economy grew at an annual average of almost 5.5%. During those years, foreign investments kept pouring into the country. Practically every day, new multinationals opened factories, establishments, offices, or bought local companies. However, suddenly, one day, all that prosperity came to a halt, and a severe monetary crisis began to shake the country. The lira lost more than 90% of its value, and foreign reserves practically evaporated. Now Turkey is trying to take off again, but to what extent can we talk about an economic miracle in Turkey? Why did this growth suddenly stop? What potential does this vast country of 85 million people have now? What could this mean for investors? Hello to all the community of Finance for All, welcome to another video. Until 2001, Turkey was not a particularly prosperous place. It was basically a developing country that was entirely unable to close the gap with the wealthier nations. However, in 2001, the current president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, came to power with an ambitious reform plan that included trade liberalization, the privatization of many state-owned companies, closer ties with the European Union, and a strong commitment to modernizing the country's infrastructure. Under Erdogan, the country embarked on massive projects to build and improve roads, ports, and airports, including the construction of a new mega international airport in Istanbul, inaugurated in 2018, which has become one of the most important in the world. On October 29, 2018, the new mega airport in Istanbul was inaugurated, and in its first stage, it aimed to accommodate 90 million passengers in 2019, a figure comparable to the world's largest capacity airports. The construction cost $11.671 billion. The reform plan was a huge success. Suddenly, international capital began to flow in massively, and foreign direct investments multiplied. The economy industrialized, the country positioned itself as a trendy tourist destination, and Istanbul transformed into an important financial hub. Everyone wanted to take advantage of a country with a young population, low labor costs, and a privileged geographical position. Turkey became the natural connection point between Europe, the Middle East, Russia, and Central Asia, a perfect place to locate and concentrate the manufacturing of many products. A good example of this is the automotive industry. In 2001, Turkey produced about 270,000 vehicles per year, but the establishment of factories by multinationals like Renault, Toyota, Hyundai, and Ford led production to nearly reach 1.7 million vehicles manufactured in the country by 2017. In other words, in just 16 years, production multiplied by more than 6 times, becoming the country's largest exporter. The massive influx of foreign direct investment caused Turkey to industrialize rapidly, to the point that the manufacturing industry's weight in GDP is now greater than that of Germany itself. Additionally, annual investment, known as gross capital formation, which refers to the resources the country allocates each year to purchase or produce machinery, factories, and buildings, exceeds 30% of GDP, an exceptionally high level that has almost matched a country like South Korea and far surpassed the investment rates of countries like Spain or Germany. And where does most of its industrial production go? That's right, to the European Union. We could practically say that Turkey's goal is to become for the European Union what China is for the world, a massive factory. The result has been that living standards in Turkey grew rapidly, quickly narrowing the gap with wealthier countries. In 2018, with this rapid economic and demographic growth, which allowed the population to surpass 80 million, Turkey seemed poised to conquer the world. However, that same year, this entire process stalled. Turkey's economic miracle gave way to a brutal monetary crisis that destroyed the value of the lira and jeopardized the entire model. But do you want to know exactly what happened? The last 20 years in Turkey have been fundamentally a success story. However, not everything was as well-oiled as it seemed at first glance. Specifically, as the country was becoming a true magnet for foreign investment and modernizing at full speed, three major problems developed. First, the enormous investment rate we mentioned earlier did not correspond to an equally high savings rate. What does this mean? Similar to what happened with Spain before the 2008 financial crisis, because national savings were smaller than investment, Turkey had to turn to international markets. In other words, the country accumulated a huge foreign debt. This is the biggest difference from Asian countries, which are significant savers. Secondly, along with the growth, the country began spending money on large projects of questionable profitability. And third, perhaps the most surprising problem of all, Erdogan is conceptually against interest rates. Throughout his time in office, he has been constantly pressuring the central bank to keep them as low as possible. As a result, instead of focusing on inflation or the exchange rate of the lira, the central bank was always under pressure to follow the president's directives. In fact, during his term, Erdogan has managed to dismiss up to 6 central bank governors. The reason, not following his guidelines. But the question is, why? Where does Erdogan's determination come from? Well, here is where a religious belief and an economic approach come together. On the one hand, the Quran strongly condemns riba, usury. Islamic law considers money to be a simple medium of exchange, and as such, it cannot be used to generate profit. However, the Quran does not specifically define the limits beyond which usury is considered to exist. This is why there are many different schools of thought. One of them, which seems to have greatly influenced the Turkish president, considers that setting an interest rate in advance could be contrary to Islamic law. But it's not just a religious matter. During his presidency, an economic school of thought also gained strength, advocating that low interest rates were the best recipe against inflation. And that's when the Turkish president had a light bulb moment. It was the perfect formula to align religion and science. According to this economic school, lower interest rates encourage investment. Investment increases production, which in turn makes products cheaper, boosts exports, and makes the country richer. Exchange rates may rise today and fall tomorrow, inflation may increase today and decrease tomorrow, but production and employment are permanent. From this perspective, lowering interest rates would be equivalent to subsidizing investment, making the country wealthier. And even better, Turkey would achieve being a rich country while fully complying with Islamic law. The problem is that it didn't work. For example, when in 2018, foreign debt eventually led to a crisis in the lira, the central bank intervened by raising rates, which enraged the Turkish president, who forced them to lower them again. And when the same thing happened in 2021, Erdogan didn't think twice. He dismissed the central bank chief and appointed an ally who shared his views on interest rates. The result, the lira collapsed, inflation skyrocketed to 80%, and demand for foreign currency, because, logically, nobody wants to save in lira, multiplied. Investors fled en masse, multinationals froze new investments, and, for example, in recent years, foreign investors reduced their holdings of bonds and shares by 70%. Foreign investors fled when Turkey began to cut interest rates, but that's not the whole story. In May 2023, elections were held, and against all odds, Erdogan was re-elected as president. Immediately after, and unexpectedly, there was a dramatic shift in the government's stance. With the economy on the brink of collapse, Erdogan appointed 3 senior officials, Mehmet Şimşek as finance minister, Hafiz Gaye Erkan as governor of the central bank, and Fatih Karahan as deputy governor of the same bank. These are 3 experts who support the conventional thesis that low interest rates fuel inflation and that it's necessary to bring monetary and fiscal accounts in order. And no sooner said than done. Since their appointment, they have more than doubled interest rates to over 17% and have announced measures to curb credit card spending and cool down lending. They have also launched efforts to attract foreign direct investment back to the country and are promoting increased consumption taxes. The transition will certainly not be easy and will entail many sacrifices for families. But if the new government manages to stay on course, tackle inflation, end the lira crisis, and get Turks to save more, the coming years, once the transition is complete, could see a return to a golden era for the country. Of course, the situation is complex, and many things could still go wrong, but if they don't, we could be looking at a great source of opportunities. Perhaps this is one reason why the market value in US dollars of the country's main stock exchange has doubled in the last year. In short, Turkey is a middle-income country with a privileged geographical position, a lucrative market soon to reach 90 million inhabitants, an emerging middle class, and a young and reasonably well-educated workforce. But now that we've reached this point, the question is for you, will we see Turkey take off again? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.